The movie begins as two brothers named Eric and Donnie search for food during their hunting trip. Donnie is more serious about getting meat, but the antics of his older brother cause him to lose his shot, and this pisses him off. He walks away from Eric and stumbles upon bloody tracks. Donnie follows the tracks into a tunnel. The tunnel gets darker as he descends, and his torchlight begins to malfunction. Despite his failing light source, he manages to pick up on the bluish goo staining the cave walls. He then sees a deer's grotesque carcass, which startles him. But the worst is yet to come. A strange creature shrieks and grabs for his legs. He struggles to get away from it and gropes for his gun in the darkness. He catches a glimpse of the creature during the tussle. It has jagged teeth and is without eyes. It shrieks at Donnie again, but this time a blinding light incapacitates him, and he falls unconscious. When he finally awakes, he is outside the cave, but he is still disoriented. There is no sign of his brother, so he walks miles to the nearest civilization. He enters a bar and settles in for a drink as he tries to gather his thoughts. Flashes of his struggles with the creature trouble him. Incidentally, some men at the bar laugh at their comrade as he tells them of a flesh-eating demon called Baru. The troubling flashback of the monster's attack merges with the voices of the barmen, which morph into echoing, high-pitched tones. Donnie stands up in a bid to get out quickly, but his body cannot handle the pressure one moment more. He stumbles and lands on the ground with a thud, going unconscious. 3 months later, we see two detectives having a boisterous discussion in a cafe. Their names are Detective Ray and Detective McElroy. Their conversation immediately comes to a halt when an unkempt-looking Donnie approaches them. He sits with them without permission and starts spewing theories about the Baru and how he thinks it is holding Eric hostage somewhere. Ray tells Donnie to stop spewing witch hunt conspiracies. He states that Eric, a struggling addict, went down a wrong path, and that is that. Ray further says that Eric was his friend, but he's gone now, and there's nothing they can do about it. Donnie refuses to toe Ray's line. He truly believes his brother is out there, and he will get him back at any cost. Detective McElroy is less sensitive to Donnie's state and outright chases him out of the diner. As Donnie steps out, we see his memories of how the brothers first found themselves in a compromising position. They had gone on a hunting trip to the desert in honor of their deceased father. When Donnie reaches home, we see he has been busy in the last 3 months, buried deep in research, and has also been trying to contact one Professor Charles Ridley, who handles paranormal studies. He finally meets with Professor Charles, who doesn't see him as crazy, but in fact thinks Donnie's theories may be credible. He tells Donnie to give him time to digest the new information and chart a new course from there. He promises to contact Donnie soon. The scene shifts to 3 ladies who sneak at night to swim in a hot spring close to the haunted region. The first 2 strip and become sky-clad. They enter the water and encourage their friend to do the same. The third woman was skeptical at first, since she could sense danger lurking. When her friends finally pacify her, she relaxes. But it is at that moment that Baru strikes and takes her head with it. The scene ends with her friends screaming as they fear for their own fate. Meanwhile, Donnie finally catches a lead based on Professor Charles's assistance. It turns out that one of Charles's students, named Morgan, had overheard a conversation between Donnie and the professor and was intrigued with Baru's concept. She begs to tag along and promises not to slow Donnie down. Donnie eventually allows her to come with him as he follows a lead to his brother. The clues Donnie has in his possession lead them to the same water body where those ladies were offed. Morgan is horrified at the gruesome corpses, but she manages to keep her cool. Donnie, on the other hand, is more fascinated by getting a breakthrough for the first time in a long while. That is, he notices that the bluish goo that has stained the corpses may be the same goo that he found in that tunnel months ago. He surmises that the sticky substance may be the monster's bodily fluid, a piece of information that anyone didn't need to know. He further shares theories with Morgan. From the scene before them, they believe that the monster wraps its victims with the substance, thereby forming a cocoon. Probably one of the worst ways to pass away. They take samples from the mangled corpses, but they leave almost immediately because Professor Charles sends a message to Donnie warning them of approaching trouble. As Donnie and Morgan drive away from the scene as quickly as possible, they cross paths with oncoming Detective Ray, but do not share any verbal exchange. Morgan and Donnie go to Charles's lab, where the trio run tests on the goo. They discover that the sample is alive and has a DNA strand similar to a parasite's. From the way the parasites react to a victim's blood cells, they theorize that the Baru is in search of human hosts in order to survive. Charles reveals a book bearing the drawing of a creature that he refers to as Barushakana Razala. Donnie realizes that that is the same creature that attacked him in the tunnel months ago. Charles explains that it is a mythical creature, and that it is said to rise from the depths of hell during a solar eclipse. When asked, Charles says that the book is a diary of unexplained occurrences on Earth. He further tells Donnie to go home and have some rest while he and Morgan run more tests to figure out why the creature wants to latch itself onto Donnie. As Danny drives home, he reminisces on the past events. He remembers the old man at the bar who spoke about Baru. When he calls the patron of the bar, the man waves Donnie off as a crazy bloke searching for another crazy bloke. Immediately, the call ends. A morphed humanoid breaks free from the boot of Donnie's car and attacks. Donnie manages to wriggle free from the situation and shoots at the creature. The creature bleeds and disappears in a blink of an eye. Donnie ponders on this, and the more he contemplates the creature, the more he feels that it shares a semblance to his brother Eric. He immediately goes back to the lab, where he sees Morgan working. Morgan tells him that the professor had just left in a hurry after he saw something in the diary. She then reveals the result of what she is working on. The creature's parasites manipulate the human host without ending it, but the human DNA within the host becomes dormant. Donnie immediately thinks of his brother and asks if it's possible to reverse the process. There's no clear answer to his question. Just then, Ray calls Donnie, telling him that he has found something. As the men meet, their conversations reveal that Ray, Eric, and Donnie were quite close many years ago. But it all changed when Eric dabbled in hard substances. Ray apologizes to Donnie for not taking his theories seriously. He takes Donnie close to the crime scene, close to the place they had earlier crossed paths. He then shows Donnie Eric's belongings, which are covered in Baru's goo, and a cocoon smeared in blood not too far from that. Donnie is devastated and swears that he will destroy the monster. The next day, Donnie invites Morgan to his place. She observes that his house is a dump, but she also acknowledges the hard work he has put into finding his brother. She tells him to bring Ray on board because it really seems like Ray wants to help. But Donnie does not respond. Instead, he tells her of his experience with the creature bearing semblance to Eric. Morgan believes that it is the cocoon that does the transformation. The duo decide to check a morgue holding one of Baru's corpses because this particular corpse is wrapped in a cocoon that even experts have a hard time breaking. In the next scene, they sneak into the morgue and miraculously or conveniently find the right compartment. Immediately, Morgan touches the cocoon. It violently shakes and then erupts, spilling blood everywhere. A creature emerges and attacks Donnie and Morgan. They try to fight it off, but the grotesque being quickly gets the upper hand. In the nick of time, 2 police officers arrive and try to render the creature immobile, but the creature disposes of them. It tears off one's limbs and impales the other with its hands. By the time the creature faces Donnie again, it is gunned down by one officer who uses his last breath. Morgan is in shock because she realizes the creature was once her classmate named Rachel. She is shaken at the turn of events and how close to home the monster has hit. She has trouble sleeping that night and wakes up to Donnie's knock on her door the next morning. Donnie tells her that Ray has some information on Professor Charles. Morgan quickly steps into the bathroom to freshen up, but then she realizes that she sustained an injury from the tussle with the evolved Rachel the previous day. Suddenly, her feverish temperature and troubled dreams start to make sense. But she keeps her injury a secret and hangs out with Donnie and Ray as planned. During the trio's conversation, Ray says that Professor Charles Ridley cannot be trusted because he has a shady past. Charles had changed his name from Frank Rancroft after a freak accident at a secret military base. 30 years after the incident, he assumed a new identity and began a teaching career. Donnie says that even if this is all true, it was he that reached out to Charles and not the other way round. Morgan then interjects. She says Charles had her look him up weeks before Donnie ever sent his first email. In other words, there is more to Charles than meets the eye. In concluding their meeting, Ray tells them that he will keep digging into confidential files, but reminds them to keep the unearthed information to themselves because humans can be more dangerous than monsters. Ray steps out of the cafe, but notices a strange man spying on him. He follows the man but runs into an evolved Eric growling at him. This scene ends as Ray begs Eric to stand down so that he is not forced to pull the trigger. Meanwhile, Morgan and Donnie sneak into the professor's office. The professor has disappeared and they need to find answers. As they search the office, Morgan reveals that she was a foster kid who was bounced around from home to home. She explains the professor made her feel seen, so she grew a close bond with him. Soon they stumble upon files stashed in a secret compartment. The short version of their discovery is that Charles has been experimenting on his students, including Morgan, whose results read inconclusive. Surprisingly, the professor also has records on Eric, which means Eric took some of his earlier classes, and Charles has deceptively known of Eric's case all along. As they discuss their discoveries, Morgan quickly becomes irritable, and from her actions, it is implied that her secret injuries are the cause of her sudden short temper. The next day, they visit a hypnotist in order to help Donnie find more details about this Baru. During the session, Donnie discovers that the creature has black eyes, sharp arms, and green skin. Most of all, he discovers that Eric was the source of the light he saw when he struggled with the monster in the tunnel. Eric had used a red flare to distract Baru, leading it away from his little brother. Eric succeeded in his mission, but that was how he got captured by the creature. Soon, Donnie and Morgan are back at her place. She hacks into the FBI's site and discovers more information about Charles and his former colleagues. but she soon succumbs to weakness ignited by her injuries. As Donnie helps her settle in, he discovers her injuries but does not make a fuss. Instead, he tracks down one Ms. Lockley, a former colleague of Charles, and begs her for information. The woman refuses to speak because she fears for her life, but then she lets slip that Eric might be a match for the creature. As Donnie enters his car, he is greeted by Charles, who is comfortably seated at the back. A startled Donnie is only convinced to drive when Charles says he knows where Eric is. On getting to a secluded area, Donnie sees the evolved Eric chained to a table. Charles goes about a classic villainous monologue. The takeaway from his speech is that he has a thirst for knowledge. He has no qualms using other humans to satisfy his needs, and he has been working behind the scenes all along to get to Donnie, because Donnie is the perfect specimen in all ramifications. Charles then frees the monstrous Eric so as to incapacitate Donnie. Donnie runs into a dark chamber for his dear life, but Eric quickly catches up. The brothers struggle, but Donnie gains the upper hand. He grabs a stone and hesitates. It seems he gets the inkling that his brother wants the suffering to end, so he smashes Eric's head repeatedly with the stone. Then he wails in agony when the deed is done, while Charles burns traces of his own existence and manages to escape. Meanwhile, Morgan agonizingly transforms into a monstrous creature similar to Eric. When Donnie manages to get back to her apartment, he sees her leap down numerous stories. As he follows her and eventually catches up to her, she is having a feast on a plump man. A policewoman arrives and threatens to shoot at a feral Morgan, but Donnie begs Morgan to run. Morgan's eyes change, insinuating that she is still in there somewhere. She runs away, and the scene ends. In the final scene, which takes place a year later, we see Charles holding a newspaper that reads that Donnie has been convicted for acts of lethal violence. Charles then visits Donnie's cell and maliciously smiles at him. The end.